The man who controlled skyscrapers couldn't control his hands when she looked him in the eye. It wasn't her dress. She wore a sweatshirt with peeling print and a pencil behind her ear. It wasn't her perfume. She smelled like ink and ginger soap. It was the silence. She didn't flinch when he walked in, not even when his security held the door. Not even when his name echoed from the mouth of the tourist behind him. "Wait, is that Cole Broderick?" She barely looked up. Have you ever walked into a room expecting control and left wondering who just unstitched your ego? Because that's what happened when Cole ducked into that Brooklyn bookstore to escape the rain. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had a board dinner across town. His mother had insisted on a polished photo op. "The cameras need to see you seated next to Chase Fremont's daughter." He told the driver to go slow, then slower. By the time the rain started, he told the man to stop. "I'll walk." "Sir, it's pouring." Cole was already stepping out. He didn't need the photos. He didn't need the deal. He needed air. What he didn't expect was a woman with chipped nail polish, cataloging books in a corner, ignoring him like he wasn't on the cover of Forbes Style last month. Her name was handwritten on a paper tag. Elia. She didn't offer him help, didn't ask for a picture, didn't even flinch when his security guard browsed through the poetry shelf like a man casing the joint. He stood in front of her for 3 seconds too long before she looked up. "You're dripping," she said flatly. He blinked. Sorry." She handed him a small towel from behind the counter. It smelled faintly of lemon oil. "You always carry towels?" "No," she replied. "Only for arrogant people who show up wet and confused." His lips parted, then curved. He laughed, once. Not the kind people hear in press interviews. A real one. No one had spoken to him like that since before his father died. Since before power started smelling like pressure. Cole wandered the shelves like a tourist. He wasn't reading, just following the sound of her movement. Her steps were soft, intentional. She ran the store like she lived in it. No music, no cheap aromatherapy, no fake vintage signs nailed to new wood. It felt honest. She saw him staring at a first edition Toni Morrison and said, "You can touch it. You're not going to damage it with your wealth." He smiled. He couldn't help it. "Do I look like I'm trying to impress you?" She didn't answer. She was already walking away. Outside, the flashbulbs finally found him. Security alerted him through the earpiece. "Paparazzi outside, sir. At least 3. Cole looked out the window. A black SUV had pulled up. 2 photographers were already positioned near the alley. He looked back at her. "Is there a back door?" She didn't ask questions. She pointed silently toward a curtain past the children's section. Behind the curtain, a storage room. Smelled like cedar and worn pages. A faded green couch. A table with 2 mugs. Paint brushes in a jam jar. "This your office?" "No," she said. "It's my sanity." She poured herself tea. Offered him none. "You live upstairs?" "Sometimes." He glanced at the windows. A fire escape peeked out behind lace curtains. She sat, picked up a book, didn't invite him to speak. And somehow, he stayed. "What's your name?" she finally asked. "You don't know." She looked up. Deadpan. "I own books, not TV." He hesitated, then said it plainly. "Cole." She shrugged. "I'm Elia." He waited. For curiosity, for recognition. None came. She closed her book. "Cole, you're still dripping." He checked his sleeves. Rainwater was pooling at the cuff. "You want dry clothes, or do you want to act rich and shiver?" 15 minutes later, he was in a worn grey hoodie and flannel pants that smelled like books and detergent. His driver had called 4 times. His mother twice. He didn't answer either. "Your people freaking out?" she asked, folding another towel. "Let them." She handed him tea this time. It tasted like ginger and honey. No poison, no pretense. She asked about nothing important. Favorite childhood snack. What scared him as a boy. What he'd do if the money disappeared tomorrow. He told her, honestly, At one point she said, "Your voice gets softer when you talk about real things." He blinked. "Is that bad?" "No, just rare." He looked at her. "You talk like you've seen a lot." She stared at him. "You listen like you haven't." As he got ready to leave, she handed him back his blazer. In the inner pocket, he found something she slipped in. A sticky note. "Come back when you want to hear quiet again." He left without a word, but the next morning, before his first meeting, he cancelled lunch with a senator's daughter and opened the bookstore's Instagram page. Only 2 posts. He followed. She didn't follow back. Cole didn't sleep much that night. His bed felt too cold, too perfect. The hotel-level duvet, the custom pillows, the temperature-controlled sheets, none of it touched the restless pacing in his mind. He stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering why a woman with ink-stained fingers and mismatched socks made him feel like his life had been one long, sterile presentation. At 6:12 a.m., he checked her store's Instagram again. Still 2 posts. No updates. No stories. No follow-back. He stared at her profile picture. It wasn't even her face. Just a close-up photo of a tea-stained book page with a smudge of red ink across it. At 6:13, he called his driver and told him to cancel every meeting. He didn't give a reason. The man didn't ask. By 8, he was standing in front of the same bookstore, coffee in one hand, his heart behaving like he'd never negotiated a $400 million merger. The store didn't open until 9. He waited on the curb. It was still drizzling, the sky pale and sleepy. A dog walker passed him and did a double take. "Yo. "Yeah," Cole said. The man raised a brow. "You good?" He nodded. At 8:47, she walked up the sidewalk carrying a brown bag and humming softly. She noticed him before he said anything. "Didn't expect you back this fast. You told me to come when I needed quiet." She held out the brown bag. "Bagel?" He took it. No cameras. No pretense. Just bread and silence. They sat on the floor behind the counter, elbows resting on knees, chewing slowly. "You didn't ask what I do," he said after a while. "You'll tell me when it matters. Does it matter now?" She looked at him, long and hard. "Are you in the kind of business where the truth costs people more than silence?" He paused. "Sometimes." She nodded. "Then no. It doesn't matter." He leaned his head against the bookshelf behind him. "You always this honest?" She sipped her tea. "No point lying to people who don't need me." That landed, more than it should have. A week passed. He kept showing up. Not every day, not scheduled, just enough. Once, she let him help shelve returns. He wore gloves so he wouldn't smear ink on any rare covers. Another time, he read her a poem in Spanish from a book she was too tired to process. She started calling him Mr. Loud Shoes because of the noise his Italian leather soles made on her wooden floors. He didn't correct her. Didn't tell her those shoes were handmade by a man who only crafted for 3 billionaires in the world. She didn't care. And that's what made her dangerous. By the second week, she had a key copy made. She left it inside a book she knew he'd open, one they argued about, East of Eden. A sticky note on page 234 said, "If you're going to steal my silence, might as well lock up." He didn't text her, just used it the next morning. She kissed him for the first time on a Tuesday. There was no build-up. He had just finished arguing with a board member over a call he didn't want to take. His tone was clipped, his jaw tight, and she walked up to him in the middle of the store, placed both hands on his cheeks, and pressed her mouth against his without a word. It wasn't soft. It wasn't rough. It was real. When she pulled away, she whispered, "You forget how to breathe when you talk to them." He stared at her, completely undone. "I remember with you." By the 3rd week, he had a drawer at her place. Not a closet, not a shelf, just one drawer. A grey t-shirt, socks, a small notebook. She didn't ask questions. She didn't push for declarations. She just cooked him eggs and let him read to her on nights when he was too tired to talk. He started smiling in photos again, not for the camera, but because he remembered her laughter when. He put his phone on speaker during conference calls and she made cat noises just to mess with him. He started breathing differently, deeper, slower, like he wasn't being timed. His mother noticed. Eleanor called him one night during dinner. "I saw the photos." "What photos?" "You outside some dusty bookstore, eating a bagel. Were you worried I'd get poisoned?" "You're a Broderick, Cole." "Exactly." She exhaled. "Do not throw away your name for emotional whimsy. Ilya isn't a whim. She's not built for our world." "Then maybe it's time I leave yours." There was silence. Then, "Think carefully before you choose street poetry over legacy." He didn't hang up, but he didn't say goodbye either. He proposed without a plan. It was raining again. She was cataloguing a shipment in the back. He pulled a sticky note from the register and scribbled, "Be my forever quiet." She found it 10 minutes later. He was leaning against the doorway, waiting. She walked up, barefoot and wet-haired, and kissed him so hard he forgot the years before her. He asked, "Is that a yes?" She replied, "You didn't say please." They married 4 weeks later. No press, no publicists, no Brodericks, only her. Him. A judge. A rooftop. She wore a 42 dress. He wore no tie. When they kissed, he held her face like he didn't own anything else in the world. Because in that moment, he didn't want to. She fainted a month later, in the kitchen. He dropped a glass when she hit the floor. Her lip was bleeding. She didn't wake up right away. He was still on the floor holding her when the ambulance arrived. The driver asked if there was someone they should call. Cole said, "No, just drive." The hospital lights were too bright. Cole kept his head down while the nurse checked Ilya's pulse. He gripped her fingers with both hands, like if he let go, something permanent might break. She hadn't opened her eyes. Not once. Not even when they rolled her through the ER doors. Not when they inserted the fourth. Not when they asked for medical history. Cole answered every question, every form, every insurance code, automatically, mechanically. But inside, something was cracking. The last time she smiled at him, she was slicing mango in the kitchen, talking about a book she wanted to start stocking, something about grief and gardens. 1 second, she was laughing. The next, she was face down on cold tile, blood from her lips smudged, on the floor like someone had painted heartbreak with their thumb. A young doctor with tense eyes stepped in. "Are you her husband?" Cole stood. "Yes. We're stabilizing her now. It looks like severe dehydration and a potential drop in blood pressure. Can you think of anything she's been exposed to recently? Food, travel, allergies?" He shook his head. "We eat the same things. We haven't traveled. She's healthy." "Has she been feeling weak? Nauseous?" She mentioned dizziness this week, but she brushed it off. The doctor wrote something down. "Can I see her? She's being monitored. As soon as she's moved, I'll let you know." The man left. Cole sat again, but his leg wouldn't stop shaking. 30 minutes passed, then 60. Finally, they wheeled her into a semi-private room. She was still unconscious, pale, lips dry. Cole didn't move from the chair by her side for 5 straight hours. He ignored every call. His mother, his COO, a cousin who only texted when the press circled too closely. None of it mattered. At 3:12 a.m., Ilya stirred. She blinked slowly, then winced. "Don't move," Cole whispered. "You're okay." She tried to sit up. He helped her. She leaned into his chest, her hand on his arm like it was the only solid thing in the world. "Did I faint again?" "Yeah." She exhaled shakily. "This is the 3rd time." "I know." "I'm sorry." "Stop saying that." She looked up, her eyes glassy. "You missed your presentation. I missed dinner with you too." She gave a weak laugh, then coughed. "Water?" He poured her a glass, held it to her lips. "I'm so tired, Cole." "I know, baby." Her fingers found his. "Don't let them say I'm fragile. I'm not." He kissed her hand. "They can say whatever they want. You're the strongest person I know." By morning, her vitals were stable. But the doctors weren't satisfied. They ordered more tests. Just to be sure, they said. Blood panels, hormone scans, liver and kidney function. Cole stayed for every one. He brought her sketchbook, her favorite scarf, even the small Bluetooth speaker she used when painting. He played Miles Davis softly in the background while she rested. When she fell asleep, he called the chef who prepped their meals, asked about every ingredient from the last 2 weeks. He even contacted the organic shop where Elia bought her herbal teas. Nothing stood out. Nothing made sense. 3 days later, they discharged her. Cole carried her shoes. She leaned on him while they walked out. The press hadn't picked up the story, not yet. But someone from his mother's estate had already texted him a link to a blind gossip item, mystery. Billionaire wife hospitalized. Sources say she's emotionally fragile after secret wedding. Cole threw his phone into a drawer when they got home. Elia tried to return to normal. She cooked again, painted a little, played piano some nights before bed. But Cole noticed things. Her hands trembled when she reached for mugs. She started forgetting words mid-sentence. Twice, she lost her balance just walking across the hallway. He brought it up gently. Maybe we should do more tests. Somewhere else. I'm not made of glass, she snapped. I didn't say you were. Her face softened. I don't want this to be all we are now. He took her hands. Then let's fix it before it defines us. She nodded. Okay. He booked a private specialist for the following week. The night before her new appointment, they stayed up late, watching a documentary about forgotten jazz artists. She fell asleep on his shoulder. Cole didn't move for an hour. He just sat there, watching her breathe, running his thumb across her knuckles. When he finally laid her down, he kissed her forehead. I'll figure it out, he whispered. You're gonna be okay. The next morning, she collapsed again. This time, in the garden, the coffee mug shattered on the stone tiles. She hit her head on the edge of a planter box. Cole sprinted outside barefoot. She was bleeding from her scalp. Call 911, he barked into the house phone. He didn't wait for an answer. He wrapped her head with his shirt and held pressure. When the EMTs arrived, he climbed into the ambulance without asking permission. Take her to Lenox Hill, he said. Tell Dr. Nielsen we're coming. Elia was barely conscious. She mumbled something about her grandmother's tea, then about shadows in the kitchen. Cole didn't understand either, but when she drifted again, something clicked in his gut. The tea, the one she started drinking months ago, the one she never made in front of him. As the ambulance turned onto Park, Cole pulled out his phone. He opened the photo of Eleanor's last gift box, a hand-curated collection of healing blends. He zoomed in on the label, one he hadn't noticed before. He read the ingredients, then read them again. He looked at Elia, then back at the label. His heart dropped. When they arrived at the hospital, he asked to speak to the doctor alone. His voice was calm, too calm. There's something in her blood, he said. The doctor frowned. Cole held up the picture of the tea jar. Run tests for Angelica root and blue cohosh, and check for trace amounts of belladonna. The doctor blinked. That's incredibly specific. Why? Cole looked at the window. Because my mother sent that tea, and his hand was shaking. The doctor didn't respond right away. He looked at Cole, then at the picture, then back at Cole again. You believe your wife's being poisoned? Cole nodded once. Steady, controlled. I'm not guessing. I've watched her get worse by the day, and I know what was introduced into her routine, quietly. Over time, the doctor's expression shifted from disbelief to concern. I'll need to contact toxicology. I already called your lab lead. I told them to start the panel. You gave a direct order to our medical team? No, Cole said, pulling out his phone and typing something in. I made a donation large enough to be treated like family. 10 seconds later, the doctor's phone buzzed. He looked down, blinked twice. Mr. Broderick, I'll notify the toxicology unit right away. Cole exhaled slowly. Thank you. Inside the observation room, Elia looked smaller than usual. Tubes, wires, monitors. She was sleeping, but her face twitched every so often, like her body was fighting back without knowing how. Cole sat in the chair, didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. 2 nurses passed by whispering. He caught a word, delicate. He stood, walked out, found them at the nurses' station. Stop using that word. They turned, wide-eyed. She's not delicate, he said. She's under attack. Neither spoke. He looked at the clipboard in the younger nurse's hand. Thank you for taking care of her. Then walked back inside. The test results came back 14 hours later. The doctor returned to Cole's waiting room. He looked tired. Cole didn't blink. Say it. We found low but consistent traces of all 3 compounds, and they were introduced slowly, microdoses. Unnoticeable at first, but cumulative damage. Cole swallowed. Is she in danger? We've stabilized her. But yes, if this had continued, she could have gone into cardiac distress or worse. Cole sat down, then stood again. Do the hospital records show who brought in the substances? We keep a visitor log. I already submitted footage from our home security. Check the timestamped deliveries. It'll match. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Broderick, are you saying someone tried to harm your wife intentionally? Yes, Cole said flatly. And I know who it was. If you found out someone close to you, someone you trusted, was quietly hurting the person you love most, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to hear your story. He didn't call Eleanor. He showed up. No press, no announcement, no bodyguard, just Cole, standing in the marble foyer of his mother's Upper East Side home. The butler hesitated. She's not expecting visitors, sir. She never expects consequences either. Let her know I'm here. 5 minutes later, Eleanor walked in wearing a silk robe and a glass of cucumber water. I assume this is important. You poisoned my wife. She blinked, then smiled faintly. That's dramatic. It's criminal. I sent her health supplements, with compounds banned in most countries, only if taken in excess. Cole stepped forward. You slipped poison into my wife's body and called it wellness. She sipped calmly. I wanted her to adapt. You wanted her to leave. Eleanor's face didn't change, not a twitch. She was pulling you from everything we built. She made me want to build something different. Eleanor set the glass down gently. And now you'll destroy everything over a woman who paints storefront signs. Cole's voice dropped. Cold, razor sharp. No, I'll destroy everything because of a mother who doesn't know the difference between control and care. The next morning, Cole contacted every internal division of the Broderick Trust. He initiated audits, froze his voting shares, removed Eleanor's discretionary access to PR and asset accounts. He issued a public statement, not about Elia's health, but about his own withdrawal from the family board. No names, no drama, just one sentence. Silence doesn't protect the innocent. It only enables the guilty. The media exploded. Stock analysts speculated, but Cole didn't flinch. Elia woke up 2 days later, weak but clearer. He was holding her hand when she turned to him. Her voice was raspy. You stayed. I'll always stay. She searched his face. Did you find out what it was? He nodded. Was it something I did? He shook his head. It was something she did. Elia closed her eyes. I didn't want you to lose everything. He kissed her hand. I didn't lose anything worth keeping. Eleanor tried to call that night. Cole blocked her. She sent a lawyer instead. The letter was cold, legal, predictable. It claimed he was overreacting, that Elia had no proof, that the hospital couldn't prosecute without a confession or witness. Cole didn't respond. Instead, he contacted 3 senators he'd once helped fund, not for a favor, but to support a new initiative, stricter regulation on unmonitored herbal compounds marketed as wellness blends. He titled it, The Quiet Toxin Act. When the bill passed its first stage, Elia cried quietly on the couch. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, he said. I swore I'd protect you, even when I didn't see the danger coming. The Broderick name stayed in the buildings, but Cole stopped answering to it. One evening, while brushing Elia's hair on the balcony, he whispered, "I moved the trust." She turned. "What?" "I put everything I owned into your name." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "So that no one can touch you again." "But I don't want to protect a legacy that tried to bury you." She stared at him, and for the first time since the bookstore, she looked afraid, not of him, but of how much he was willing to lose for her. Cole didn't attend the next board meeting. Instead, he sent a proxy, a junior associate with no authority to speak, only observe. The message was intentional. "I'm watching, but I'm not playing your game anymore." The Broderick name still carried weight, but Cole had stripped it of voice. His silence was louder than any press statement. Every move he made now happened behind closed doors. No headlines, no interviews, just quiet extraction. He sold his interest in the Manhattan Tower Eleanor had lobbied for 5 years to build, the one named after her late husband. He transferred those funds, every penny, into a new foundation, the Elia Fund, a private trust for victims of silent abuse. Women who'd been poisoned, emotionally manipulated, medically gaslit, or financially silenced. The mission statement was short: protection doesn't need permission. He didn't tell Elia right away. She was still recovering. She didn't ask where the bodyguards had gone, or why the house was being cleaned by a local service instead of uniformed Broderick staff. She didn't ask where the Bentley went, or why her hospital bills never came. But one evening, while folding laundry, she paused and looked at him. "Are we poor?" Cole laughed so hard he dropped a towel. "No, because it feels like we're hiding from something." "We're not hiding," he said. "We're healing." She watched him for a second. "Did you really cut yourself off?" He nodded. "And you're okay with that?" He shrugged. "You gave up your favorite pens to buy me groceries the first week we met. This is nothing." She smiled, but her eyes held something else, something heavy. "I don't want you to hate her." "I don't hate her," Cole said. "I don't feel anything toward her anymore." Eleanor didn't take the silence well. She tried reaching him through friends, then colleagues, then through a national paper with a leaked family source story about Elia's emotional fragility and overdependence on her husband. The headline hit social media before it hit print when "Love Turns Toxic. Billionaire's bride allegedly drove him into isolation." Cole didn't issue a rebuttal. He posted a photo instead. It was a candid of Elia painting on their brownstone rooftop, barefoot, laughing. Hair pulled into a loose knot, a streak of blue across her cheek. No caption, no explanation, just the image. The post went viral. 24 hours later, he received over 200 emails from women across the country. All of them had stories. All of them started the same way. "I didn't know I was being hurt until I got sick." Cole forwarded every one to the Elia Fund's advisory board. Elia still didn't know the fund existed. He wanted her to feel safe before he told her she was saving others. One night, Elia stood in the kitchen holding a spoon mid-air. She looked at the tea cabinet, then at the cup in her hand, then back at the jar she'd opened. Cole entered just in time to see her shoulders slump. She set the cup down. "I almost drank it." "It's not poisoned," he said gently. "I checked it myself." "I know," she whispered. "But I didn't even think. I just reached." He walked over and took the cup, held her. "You don't have to be afraid in your own house." She leaned into him. "I don't think it's the house I'm afraid of." That night, he made her a promise. "I'm not going to fix you," he said. She blinked. "I'm going to stand beside you while you find the pieces yourself." She buried her face in his chest. "That's all I want." By the end of the week, Elia had painted again. The first piece was raw, sloppy, jagged strokes in shades of brown and grey. She called it Mother's Hands. When Cole saw it, he didn't speak. He just kissed her temple and whispered, "It's perfect." She hung it in the hallway, right across from the front door. When Cole asked why there, she said, "So if she ever shows up again, she knows I see her now." The next morning, Eleanor sent a handwritten note by courier. No return address, just one line. I will not be erased. Cole burned it in the sink, then poured her ashes down the drain. That evening, a call came in from a law firm in Albany. Eleanor had petitioned the family estate court to regain access to Cole's inherited trust, claiming diminished mental capacity on his part due to spousal coercion. The hearing was in 30 days. Cole didn't even blink. He looked at Elia, who was holding a wet brush in one hand, completely unaware. He whispered, "Let her try," and smiled. But his eyes were full of quiet war. 30 days. That's how long the court had given them before the hearing. 30 days for Eleanor to make her case that Cole Broderick, her son, her heir, her legacy, was mentally compromised due to spousal coercion. 30 days to try and rip back everything he'd taken from her grasp. Cole didn't tell Elia right away. She was painting again, brighter colors this time. Yellow, indigo, even gold streaks. He didn't want to dim that, not yet. Instead, he contacted the same legal strategist he'd once used to dismantle a hedge fund that tried to corner Broderick South Bank. This time, he gave a simpler task. Prove my autonomy. The first attack didn't come from court documents. It came from headlines. A feature column in a national financial blog, "Is Love Weakening America's Strongest Legacy Families?" It included photos of Cole grocery shopping in Dumbo, Elia painting barefoot, anonymous quotes from Broderick family associates who claimed Cole was being emotionally manipulated by a low-income outsider. He didn't respond, but his silence wasn't empty. The Elia Fund gained 40,000 new supporters in a week, and one morning, a FedEx envelope arrived with a handwritten letter from a woman in Florida. She wrote, "My ex-husband laced my smoothies for 6 months before I ended up in the ER. No one believed me until I played dead. Now I help other women do the same. Thank you for fighting out loud." Cole framed it, put it in the hallway, across from Mother's hands. Elia noticed, but still didn't ask. 2 weeks before the hearing, Elia found the envelope. It wasn't hidden, just left on Cole's desk, half open, filled with court papers and exhibits. She flipped through it in silence. She read every line, including the part where Eleanor accused her of brainwashing Cole, isolating him from his obligations and redirecting institutional wealth toward personal vanity projects. She didn't cry, didn't yell. She walked into the kitchen, set the envelope down, and whispered, "She's not trying to take you back. She's trying to prove you never left." Cole didn't speak. He just pulled her into a hug and held her there for a long time. The night before the court hearing, Eleanor sent a gift, a crystal bottle of perfume she used to wear when Cole was young. No note, just the scent, the same one that lingered in her hugs. Her hair, her living room carpet, the same scent that followed him through every failure as a boy. Elia found it at the doorstep. She didn't touch it, just closed the door and whispered, "We're not opening anything else from her again." Cole agreed. He poured the perfume down the drain. The hearing wasn't public, but everyone who mattered found out about it. Wealth does that. It turns silence into whispers, turns private affairs into legal theater. Cole walked into the courtroom holding Elia's hand. She wore a simple black dress and no makeup. He wore a suit with no tie. The Broderick lawyers wore smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The judge was neutral, direct, no nonsense. He asked Eleanor's counsel to present their case first. They claimed Cole had withdrawn from all family business operations with no valid explanation. He had transferred large sums into a private foundation named after his wife, with no board oversight. He had cut off family and financial advisors after marrying a woman with no previous access to elite social networks. And, most importantly, he had acted with emotional bias and diminished strategic clarity. When the judge asked for evidence of mental impairment, Eleanor's lawyer paused. "We don't claim he's medically unstable, only that he's no longer himself." The judge raised a brow. "Legally, that means nothing." Cole's lawyer smiled for the first time. Then came Cole's turn. He stood, Didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. He spoke like he had in every boardroom, but with more purpose than profit. I was groomed for power. I was taught how to look strong, not be strong. I was raised to preserve a name, not a soul. He looked at Eleanor. My mother didn't lose her son. She lost control over a man who stopped obeying. The judge listened. Cole continued. Elia didn't steal my clarity. She gave me a reason to use it. He reached into his folder and handed over a single document. My actions weren't reckless. They were strategic. Every transaction is detailed. Every transfer is traceable. The Elia Fund is audited by an independent committee. The judge flipped through the document. After 3 minutes, he set it down. I see no basis to question your judgment. This petition is denied. Eleanor didn't flinch, didn't blink. She stood slowly, nodded at the judge, then walked out. No glance at Cole, no final word, just silence. That night, as Cole and Elia stood on the rooftop under a sky lit with city haze, she turned to him and whispered, "She won't stop." He nodded once. "She won't win either." Then he added quietly, "I've got one more thing to take from her." Elia's breath caught. "What?" He looked at her. Her name, and just like that, Cole Broderick was about to become someone new. Cole stood in the mirror longer than usual. The courtroom win hadn't brought peace, not the kind he was looking for. He wasn't interested in crushing Eleanor's legal petition. He wanted distance, air, an end to the game she always seemed to be 10 moves ahead in. He reached for his razor but paused, then did something he hadn't done in 15 years. He shaved his beard clean. The last time his face was bare, he was a teenager standing on the steps of Harvard's finance building. A boy with shiny shoes and a mother whose hand never left his shoulder. Now, as the blade cleared the last streak of foam from his jaw, he looked himself in the eyes. Not a Broderick anymore, not an heir, just a man choosing peace. He made the name change official 2 days later. It wasn't dramatic. He filed paperwork with a quiet attorney, used a neutral middle name, nothing performative. He didn't want a headline, he wanted relief. When the judge stamped the approval, the clerk raised her brow. "You sure about this?" Cole nodded. "I've never been more sure." He left the courthouse alone, no driver, no coat, just the sound of his shoes on wet concrete. When he walked into the bookstore that afternoon, Elia looked up from the register. He handed her the stamped certificate. She blinked. "You really did it?" He nodded. Cole Easton. That's who I am now. Easton? The town my grandfather retired to. Before the Broderick name swallowed him, she folded the paper slowly. Her voice cracked just a little. "Thank you." "No," he said, pulling her close. "Thank you for making me want to start over." Later that night, they sat on the rooftop, watching the city breathe. Below them, horns and sirens and steam filled the air like usual, but up here, they were alone, wrapped in a blanket, 2 mugs of tea sitting untouched. Elia tucked her head into his shoulder. "So what now? We build..." Build what? Everything she tried to destroy. He started by restructuring the foundation. It would no longer be called the Elia Fund. She protested. "This isn't about me." "It is," he said, "but not for the reasons you think." She tried again. "It'll make me a target." He replied gently, "You already were. This time, you get to be the one standing." She didn't argue after that. Instead, she helped design the new logo. A hand-painted spiral made from brushstrokes of different women's names written in soft ink. They called it the Stillwater Trust. Cole reached out to therapists, medical consultants, and legal advisors who specialized in covert abuse. They built a team, not for show, not for tax write-offs, for action. They started by funding anonymous lab tests for women with unexplained illnesses. Then, a legal defense branch for women in non-violent poisoning cases, an overlooked niche in domestic harm litigation. Elia didn't ask for credit, but she showed up to every meeting. Cole noticed she never wore perfume anymore. Even when they went out, she said it made her nauseous now. He never pushed. He just opened windows for her when they sat in restaurants, let her choose the seats, gave her space to feel safe. Meanwhile, Eleanor stayed quiet, but quiet from her meant something worse. Cole knew that woman didn't rest in defeat. She retreated to plot. Sure enough, 3 weeks after the hearing, a former board member leaked private family financial records to the press, anonymously, of course. The story painted Cole as impulsive, overcorrecting for guilt, and financially reckless. The article included just enough truth to make the rest seem credible. Cole didn't respond, but Elia saw the story, and this time she didn't stay silent. She sat in front of a camera, no makeup, hair tied back, wearing one of her paint-smudged sweaters. She spoke for 6 minutes. No script, no edits. She said, "No one teaches women how to recognize betrayal when it wears love's face. No one warns you that poison doesn't always come in bottles. It can come in teacups, wrapped in concern, served by people who say they know what's best. For you, I almost died, not because someone hated me, but because they thought love meant control. My husband didn't save me. He believed me, and that gave me the strength to save myself." They uploaded the video without fanfare. By morning, it had 3.2 million views. That same morning, Eleanor sent another message. No letters, no legal threats. Just one line in an email forwarded from a silent domain. "You think this is over, but you haven't even bled yet." Cole stared at the screen, jaw tight. Elia walked in behind him, holding her tea, paused. "What is it?" He closed the laptop. "Nothing we can't handle." But inside, he knew. The next strike wouldn't be in courtrooms or press columns. It would be personal. And this time, Eleanor wouldn't miss. The first sign came subtly. Cole arrived at a donor meeting for Stillwater, only to find that the venue reservation had been mysteriously cancelled. The hotel manager apologized profusely. "We received a call this morning from someone on your team." Cole knew immediately. No one on his team made that call. Not without him. It wasn't sabotage from a stranger. It was Eleanor's fingerprint. Not loud, just enough to interrupt, to humiliate. Then came the bank hold. One of Stillwater's main donation accounts flagged a suspicious foreign deposit and temporarily froze outgoing transfers. Elia was the one who noticed. She had gone in to send a grant to a woman in Milwaukee who needed emergency relocation. When the account locked, she didn't panic. She simply called Cole and said, "She's trying to cut air." He knew exactly who she meant. They moved fast. Cole rerouted funds, created redundancies, pulled tech teams into private meetings. No one was allowed to say her name in official reports. He refused to let her live rent-free inside their systems. But every step forward came with another quiet blow. A business partner's child was suddenly offered an elite scholarship, with a note that the donor preferred to keep Broderick ties intact. A gallery exhibit Elia had planned was suddenly postponed due to logistical concerns. Anonymous messages began arriving in their inbox from fabricated accounts, all saying the same thing: "Not your name, not your world." Cole didn't flinch, but he did shift. He stopped playing defense and quietly began digging. He called a contact from his earliest Broderick Foundation days, a man known for 2 things, discretion and leverage. "I need eyes on Eleanor," Cole said. "Full digital footprint. Past year. No trace." "You want dirt?" "No," Cole replied. "I want truth. And I want it fast." Meanwhile, Elia painted harder, longer hours. The brush became her language when the rest of her wanted to scream. One night, he found her crying in the studio, canvas smeared in red and grey. She looked up and said, "I hate that she still makes me feel small." Cole walked over, sat beside her and wiped her cheek. "She's not making you feel anything. She's reacting to the fact that you finally don't." A week passed. The private investigator returned with results. Cole read every page, twice, and on the 3rd pass, he found what he didn't even know he was looking for. It wasn't financial fraud. It wasn't a bribe. It was a shell account. sending monthly payments to a medical facility in Geneva. The account name, E. Wren Recovery Trust, Elia's initials, a fake recovery program, and the memo descriptions? Client under emotional instability. Consent to monitor confirmed. Cole nearly dropped the file. He checked the recipient. A doctor who had once treated Eleanor's sister. He called the facility, used a fabricated identity, requested a call log. They didn't release much, just enough to show that someone had posed as Elia's guardian, requesting records, reporting behaviors, asking for psychological assessments under false pretenses. Cole felt cold. This wasn't just about sabotage. Eleanor was building a case. To have Elia declared legally unfit. He didn't tell Elia right away. She had just sold her first painting since the incident. A gallery in Soho wanted a small collection. She was smiling again. He let her have that moment. But that night, while she was asleep, he sat alone on the balcony staring at the file. Eleanor wasn't just trying to take back power. She was trying to erase Elia's credibility, to make the world believe that Cole had fallen under the spell of an unstable woman, and that everything they'd built was the result of emotional collapse. The next morning, Elia walked into the kitchen to find Cole already dressed. Suit, tie, the whole look. He hadn't worn that combo in months. She paused. Going somewhere? He handed her the file. She read 3 pages, then stopped. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She closed it and whispered, "She wants to institutionalize me." Cole nodded once. Elia looked up at him. "And if she gets away with it?" "She won't." That evening, Cole stood outside Eleanor's building. He didn't go inside. Instead, he sent her a message through the doorman. "You have 48 hours to pull every lie you've seeded, or I go public with all of it. The fake reports, the payments, the names, the Geneva file." 2 minutes later, his phone buzzed. No text, no words, just an image of Eleanor, sitting in a high-rise dining room, facing a man Cole hadn't seen in years, his father's old advisor, a man who once told Cole at age 16, "If your mother ever turns on you, burn the paper trail before she lights the match." She was preparing something big, and this time, she wasn't alone. Cole sat across from the man in the unmarked cafe on 53rd and Lexington. The lighting was dim, the coffee bitter, and the silence between them sharp enough to cut bone. The man's name was Gerrit Lowell, retired, untouched by scandal, and once his father's closest confidant. Cole hadn't seen him in over a decade. "I thought you were done with her," Gerrit said, lifting his cup. "I was. Until she came after my wife." Gerrit didn't react. He'd worked with men who used nuclear options to fix petty insults. Eleanor was worse. "She's not just playing defense anymore," Cole continued. "She's rewriting the narrative before anyone else can tell the truth." Gerrit stared out the window. "That's always been her gift. She doesn't kill reputations. She replaces them. I know about the Geneva file. I know about the offshore payments." "Then you already know," Gerrit said softly. "She doesn't plan to stop with reputations. She's setting up mental incompetency filings in 3 countries. She's calling in favors I thought she burned years ago." Cole didn't blink. "She wants to destroy Ilia," he said. Gerrit finally looked at him. "No, Cole. She wants you to destroy her. Because if she makes you question Ilia even once, she wins." Cole left the cafe colder than when he entered. Gerrit had made it clear, Eleanor didn't need to win legally. She needed Cole to crack emotionally, publicly. She needed the image of doubt to go viral. A photo, a headline, a moment, anything to say, "Look how far he's fallen." Back at the brownstone, Ilia was barefoot in the kitchen, trying to recreate a ginger sauce she remembered from a childhood recipe. She had paint under her fingernails and music playing softly from the speaker. When she saw him enter, she smiled. It hit Cole like a brick to the chest. He didn't want her to smile at him like that anymore. Not while he was bringing war into her sanctuary. They ate quietly. She didn't ask how the meeting went. She never asked questions she knew he wasn't ready to answer. Instead, after dinner, She brought out 2 mugs of mint tea and asked if he wanted to go upstairs. They lay on the bed, heads at opposite ends, staring at the ceiling. "You think she regrets having you?" Elia asked suddenly. Cole turned to look at her. "No." "Why not?" "Because I was never a person to her. I was a project." Elia didn't speak for a moment. Then, "How do you fight someone who doesn't believe they're wrong?" Cole breathed in slowly. "You don't fight them," he said. "You expose them." 2 days later, Eleanor called. Not through a lawyer, not through a press release. She called directly. Cole stared at her name on the screen. He answered. "I take it you've received my message," she said. "I've received several." Her voice was calm, controlled. "I've given you a name, a reputation, a family. You've taken all of that and poisoned it. You're emotional, Cole." "No. I'm wide awake." She paused. "I'll give you a choice. Step away from her now, publicly. Reinstate your Broderick holdings. Apologize for the instability. I'll clean it up. Quietly, discreetly. You'll be back where you belong within a month." Cole let the silence drag. Then, "And if I don't, I bury her." He didn't answer, just hung up. Then turned to Elia, who had been standing behind him the whole time. "I don't need protection," she said. "I know. I need you to stop reacting and start finishing." He looked her in the eyes, then nodded. That night, Cole pulled every asset from his final remaining joint venture with the Broderick family. It was a historic trust tied to his father's name, something Eleanor never thought he'd touch. He liquidated his shares, reinvested them under Stillwater's corporate shell, every dollar. The move triggered a press leak by morning. The headline, "Broderick's son sells off final legacy ties. What does this mean for the dynasty?" But the bigger blow came from what Cole did next. He scheduled a press conference, not a digital post, not a quiet statement, a live, public appearance, his first in 2 years. He booked it under the Stillwater banner and requested a small platform. No flashy stage, no luxury hotel, just a microphone, a podium, and a crowd. Elia tried to stop him. "You don't owe anyone a performance." "I'm not doing this for them," he said. "I'm doing it for the girl who fainted in our kitchen while drinking poison that carried my mother's scent." Elia stood in front of him, trembling. "She's going to retaliate." "Let her," he said. "She has nothing left to lose." Cole touched her cheek. "She has her name. I'm taking that next." As Cole walked onto the small stage to face a crowd of reporters, Elia stood off to the side, hidden behind a barrier. From the shadows, someone snapped a photo of her. The next morning, that photo would be plastered across social media with the caption, "The woman who destroyed the Brodericks, unfiltered." But what they didn't see was the fire building behind Cole's eyes, because in 24 hours he wasn't just telling the truth, he was releasing proof, and Eleanor wouldn't be able to outrun it. The lights were harsh, the mics too close, and the crowd larger than expected. Cole adjusted the collar of his jacket once. He didn't wear a tie, no designer branding, just a black coat and a wedding ring that gleamed under the lights. The cameras clicked. Live feeds rolled. His face beamed on 2 local news channels and 1 national outlet that had picked up the headline last night. "Billionaire son breaks legacy silence. Is he calling out his mother?" Cole didn't flinch as the first question came. "Mr. Broderick," he cut in gently. "It's Eastern now." A pause rippled through the press line. He continued, "I was raised to believe that legacy mattered more than people, that the name on the building was more valuable than the truth inside the home." A breeze stirred. One reporter leaned in. "My name was Cole Broderick, son of Eleanor Broderick, grandson of the man who built half the skyline you see behind me. And for years, I let that name speak for me." He looked down briefly, then back up. "But today, I want to speak for myself." In the front row, Elia watched. She was out of sight from most cameras, but Cole saw her, his anchor. "For over a year, my wife, Elia, suffered from unexplained illness. We trusted doctors, changed diets, adjusted schedules, and still, her health declined." He paused. Eventually, we discovered the truth. He pulled a folder from his jacket, held it up. This is a toxicology report, verified by multiple independent labs. Inside are the names of substances that were repeatedly introduced into her system, without her knowledge and without consent. Gasps. Pens stopped moving. My wife was poisoned, slowly, quietly. Over time, a reporter raised her hand. Are you saying this was deliberate? Cole nodded. I'm saying it was calculated. He placed the folder on the podium. I'm also saying, I know who did it. Another voice shouted. Are you accusing Eleanor Broderick of attempted murder? Cole stared into the lens of the nearest camera. I'm accusing Eleanor Broderick of choosing power over her son's life and nearly ending my wife's in the process. Chaos. Flashes. Reporters yelled over each other. Cole raised a hand. I am not here to debate. I am here to declare. He laid out the evidence. Wire transfers, delivery logs, herbal compound analysis. He displayed the Geneva file, redacted only to protect third-party confidentiality. He explained how his mother attempted to build a mental instability narrative around Elia using false recovery documentation. And then, with calm precision, he said, she thought if she couldn't destroy me, she'd erase the only woman who made me human. It went silent. Even the press held their breath. Cole's voice dropped. But the truth doesn't disappear just because it makes the wrong people uncomfortable. He leaned forward. Elia Wren Easton is not unstable. She is not a thief. She is not a stain on a legacy. She is the reason I learned what love is. He stepped back. And from this moment forward, my legacy begins with her. Applause wasn't loud, but it was real. A few claps, then more. The front row stood. Reporters didn't push. They nodded. Because they saw something rare. A man giving up power to protect love. After the conference, Cole walked straight to Ilya. She didn't say anything. She just buried her face into his coat and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for months. They didn't go to a restaurant or give a follow-up interview. They went home. And for the first time in nearly a year, Cole slept without waking up in a panic. The next morning, the photo of Elia leaked. She was looking sideways, no makeup, wind in her hair, holding a bag of groceries. The caption read, "This is the woman he burned his empire for." Thousands of comments, some cruel, some compassionate, but one stood out, pinned by a verified account under the name Mom Wren Gardens. She doesn't look like power, she looks like peace, and that's why he chose her. While Cole and Elia sat together in their small kitchen, sharing breakfast, Cole's phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. Just one sentence. She filed again. Eleanor wasn't done, but this time, she'd filed for grandparent visitation rights. Elia looked up from her tea. She's planning to go through our child. Cole gritted his teeth. She's never touching Iris, because this war was no longer about legacy. Now, it was about blood. Elia stared at the message on Cole's phone for a long time. She didn't speak, didn't blink. The words grandparent visitation rights were still highlighted on the screen. Cole had left the phone between them on the kitchen table, untouched, like if neither of them acknowledged it out loud, maybe the threat would retreat. But it didn't, because this wasn't about guilt. This was about control. She's using Iris now, Elia finally said. Cole nodded slowly. It was only a matter of time. She doesn't want to visit. No, he replied. She wants to claim. In New York State, a petition for grandparent visitation can be filed if a parent is deceased, or if the grandparents can prove a substantial pre-existing relationship with the child. Eleanor didn't have that. She'd never seen Iris, never sent a gift, never called, never asked. But what she did have was money, power, and a record of Cole's estrangement from his family, now positioned as manipulation by an emotionally unstable spouse. Same story, new angle. Cole called his attorney immediately. Get me everything she's filed. I want her motion, her declaration, every supporting document. And I want a strategy. You understand what she's trying to prove, right? Yes, Cole said. She's trying to prove we're keeping Iris from her out of revenge, not protection. And if she wins a hearing, it's not just supervised visitation she can push for, she can request. Evaluators, family therapy orders, even a court-appointed guardian to review your parenting. Cole gritted his teeth. She wants to get inside my home. That night, Elia stood at the window, rocking Iris gently in her arms. The baby was barely 4 months old. Her curls were already showing. Her skin was a warm, soft brown like Elia's. Her lips, Cole's. She's not even old enough to say, "Mama," Elia whispered. "And your mother wants to take her name." Cole stepped behind her. "She's not going to win." Elia kept rocking, eyes distant. "How do you stop a woman who doesn't break the law? She bends it." Cole looked down at Iris, then up at Elia. "You changed the law around her." The next morning, Cole made 2 phone calls. First, to a private children's rights advocate in Albany who had helped draft revisions for New York's family visitation statutes in 2016. Then, to an investigative journalist who had been covering elite abuse of family court systems for years. He didn't give them the story, not yet. He gave them patterns, connections, documents that weren't confidential, but had never been connected out loud. Elia didn't leave the house that week, not because she was scared, because she was watching. Every news segment, every blog, every court docket update. She was waiting for Eleanor to make her next move. And Eleanor did. She filed a second motion. This one requested an emergency evaluation of Cole's decision-making, citing inconsistencies in personal identity, family separation, and self-sabotage rooted in inherited trauma. "She's calling your name change a sign of mental instability," Elia whispered. "She's trying to undo every boundary I've drawn. She's trying to prove that if she can't trust you, the court shouldn't either." Cole didn't speak for a long time. Then, let her try. 3 days later, the court hearing was scheduled. Family court. Closed to the public. 1 judge, 2 lawyers. No cameras. The kind of hearing the public never sees, but where powerful families settle scores in silence. The night before the hearing, Elia placed a sealed envelope on Cole's pillow. Inside, a photo of Iris, wrapped in Elia's scarf, asleep on Cole's chest, and a note. "If they ask what matters most, show them this. Not your last name, not your trust funds. This." Cole folded the picture slowly, kissed the note, and whispered, "She won't take her. Not while I'm breathing." The courtroom was cold, not in temperature, cold in tone, in posture, in the way the judge didn't look up when Cole and Elia entered. 2 attorneys stood already in place, one for Eleanor, crisp and sharp, speaking in soft tones that dripped with respectability. The other, Cole's, quiet, organized, focused. This wasn't a custody battle, not yet, but Cole knew it was the opening argument to one. Elia sat behind him, arms crossed, not in defiance, but to hold herself still. Her eyes never left the front. She didn't blink when Eleanor walked in, wearing a pale grey suit and a brooch shaped like a dove. The judge raised a hand. "We're here today for a petition of grandparent visitation filed by Ms. Eleanor Broderick, seeking legal access to the minor child, Iris Easton." She didn't even flinch at the use of the last name. Eleanor's lawyer opened with a polished statement. "Your Honor, this is not about power, this is about family. Ms. Broderick has expressed a sincere, long-standing desire to know her grandchild. While she may not have had contact previously, that absence was not due to lack of interest, but rather to estrangement caused by emotional instability and manipulation within the household of her son, Mr. Easton." Cole didn't move. The lawyer continued. "Ms. Broderick seeks the chance to build a connection with the child, a connection that is her right and in the child's best interest." He sat down. Eleanor folded her hands in her lap, face unreadable. Cole stood. "My daughter," he began calmly, "has never met the woman who now claims to love her." He didn't raise his voice, didn't gesture wildly. Iris was not born into legacy. She was born into recovery, into silence and healing and peace. He stepped forward slightly. The petitioner had every opportunity to engage. She declined. She didn't write, call, or ask. She waited until cameras disappeared and headlines faded. And now that her name is no longer in control, she wants mine back through my daughter. A ripple moved across the gallery. He looked straight at the judge. We are not denying family. We are protecting our child from harm wrapped in inheritance. If someone used the legal system to force their way into your child's life after cutting you out of theirs, what would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about what real protection means. The judge leaned back. Do you have proof of malicious intent from the petitioner? Cole handed the clerk a sealed envelope. Inside, a copy of the Geneva file, a printout of Eleanor's fake recovery plan, financial transfers to the medical contact who agreed to monitor Elia under a false diagnosis, the bank trail, the media leaks, the social manipulation, all of it. The judge scanned it for several minutes. When she finally looked up, her face had changed. She turned to Eleanor's lawyer. Do you deny the authenticity of these documents? The man cleared his throat. We believe the presentation of this evidence is out of context. The judge cut in. You don't deny it. No, Your Honor. Then why should I believe this is about love and not leverage? Silence. The judge turned back to Cole. You've made your case clearly. She turned to Elia now. Mrs. Easton, do you have anything to say? Elia stood slowly. Her voice was quiet. People think poison comes in bottles, in needles. But sometimes it comes in a letter, in a headline, in a courtroom. She paused. My child doesn't need more connections. She needs safety. My job as her mother isn't to make my family proud. It's to make her feel whole. She sat back down. The judge nodded once. I've reviewed the testimony and the submitted exhibits. Petition for grandparent visitation is denied. Eleanor didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak, just stood, collected her papers, and walked out. Cole and Elia didn't celebrate. There was no joy in winning against someone who shared your blood. Only relief, and the quiet ache of knowing the war would continue, just under a different disguise. Back at home, Elia tucked Iris into bed. Cole checked the baby monitor, then went to the front door to make sure it was locked. There, sitting on the welcome mat, was a single manila envelope, no stamp, no writing. Just two things inside, a birth certificate and a photo. Elia, 6 years ago, outside a clinic in Brooklyn, and scrawled on the back of the photo, in thick black ink, she was never yours to protect. Cole stared at it, then lit it on fire. Cole didn't speak as the paper curled in flames. He didn't move until the photograph's edges blackened into ash, the words disappearing into glowing threads. The birth certificate, he didn't burn that, not yet, because he needed to understand why Eleanor had it, why she had that photo of Elia outside a women's clinic 6 years ago, long before they met, long before Iris, long before anyone in the Broderick family even knew Elia Wren existed. He didn't ask questions out loud, not to Elia, not yet. He tucked the half-burned folder inside a drawer in his home office and locked it. That night, Elia leaned against his back in bed, whispering, "Are you still with me?" "Always," Cole said. But the words felt heavier than usual, because something had shifted. This wasn't just Eleanor trying to manipulate custody or public image anymore. This was her trying to rewrite Elia's past, to discredit her story before it was even told. And Cole knew, if she could raise doubt about who Elia was before him, she could break everything they'd built since. The next morning, he made 2 moves. 1, he had a private investigator discreetly request all historical security footage and entry logs from the Brooklyn clinic in the photo, pretending to represent a documentary project about early 2010s healthcare infrastructure. 2, he flew to Albany, not to see a lawyer, to see a woman named Camden Shaw, a former investigative tech reporter turned legal analyst, who specialized in cases where the powerful rewrote history through digital manipulation. He'd followed her work for years, quietly. Now he needed her help. Camden greeted him in a small apartment above a bookstore, wearing ripped jeans, no shoes, and a ponytail that hadn't been brushed that day. "Nice suit," she said. "Nice encryption firewall," he replied, glancing at the multi-monitor setup behind her. She grinned. "So," she said, sipping coffee, "what do you need me to find?" "Proof. My mother is trying to falsify my wife's history." Her eyebrow lifted. "And let me guess, you don't want to go public. Yet, not until I know what she's after." Camden nodded. "Then let's dig." Back home, Ilya was watching Iris nap when she opened her email. She wasn't expecting anything, just checking updates on the Stillwater art therapy program. But there, sitting at the top of her inbox, was a message with no subject line and an address she didn't recognize. Inside, one image, a document, faint, cropped, but recognizable. It was her, a decade ago, signing a form. At the top, adoption inquiry packet. She froze. She didn't remember signing anything like that. Didn't remember ever asking to adopt. She was 21, working nights, barely surviving. She called Cole immediately. "I think she has someone inside the clinic." Camden confirmed it the next morning. "She's not just pulling old documents," she said over video chat. "She's fabricating connections." She clicked through 3 layers of metadata on screen. Ilya's image from the clinic, time-stamped 6 months after the date printed on the form. She's building a backstory, a false trail, designed to suggest that Ilya had a child before Iris. Cole's jaw clenched. So she can accuse her of hiding a first child. Or worse, Camden added, abandoning one. He ended the call, pushed the laptop aside, and walked into the nursery, where Ilya was rocking Iris softly, humming without sound. He sat beside her on the floor. "Do you remember anything about that clinic?" She nodded slowly. "I went for a checkup, once. I thought I was pregnant. I wasn't." She looked down. "I was with someone back then. It was a mess. He didn't stay, and I didn't keep anything." Cole nodded. "You don't need to explain." "I want to." She looked at him. "I never wanted to be a mother until Iris. Back then I wasn't ready. I was still trying to fix my own childhood." He took her hand. "You did." She smiled, eyes misty. "No. We did." 3 nights later, Camden called again. Her voice was tight. "You need to get ahead of this. Now, why?" "Because Eleanor's people just registered a shell account with the title iris-truth-foundation.org. They're prepping a narrative. It'll hit blogs first, then tabloid TV. Cole blinked. "What narrative?" Camden sighed. "She's going to claim Iris isn't Ilya's biological child." Camden's words echoed long after the call ended. "She's going to claim Iris isn't Ilya's biological child." Cole stood alone in the hallway, hands pressed against the wall. Across from him, the nursery door was cracked open. Inside, Ilya was humming again, softly rocking Iris, her voice steady, like she didn't know the storm was minutes away from ripping through their home. He walked in, sat on the edge of the rug, looked at Ilya like she might disappear if he blinked. She didn't ask what Camden said. She already knew. "She's coming for blood now," Ilya said quietly. "She always was," Cole replied. Later that night, after they put Iris to sleep, they sat on the couch in silence. Cole broke it first. "We need to get ahead of it." Ilya shook her head. "If we start proving things, it looks like we're guilty." "No, it looks like we're protecting her. She's a baby, Cole." "How do you protect a baby from a story?" He exhaled. "You don't fight the lie. You erase the platform." By morning, Cole had his tech team working on tracking the iris-truth-foundation.org domain. It was purchased under a blind LLC, linked to an offshore firm. Typical. But the content was already scheduled to go live. Drafted, uploaded, timed. The main claims were disgusting. That Ilya forged medical records. That Iris was adopted from a private exchange. That Ilya was using the child to manipulate Cole. and access Broderick wealth. The language was crafted carefully, falsehoods wrapped in half-truths, poison disguised as concern. Cole stared at the landing page mock-up and whispered, "She built a lie that sounds believable to people who want it to be." He called Camden. "Take it down." "I can't do that legally, Cole." "Then do it illegally." Camden didn't flinch. "If I go in that way, I leave fingerprints. Then you're not going in alone." He paused. "I'm going with you." That night, Camden walked him through her secure systems. A VPN tunnel, masked location, ghost server, burner network. She was brilliant, unapologetic, relentless. "Most people think hacking is about speed," she said. "It's not. It's about silence. You slip in, read everything, and slip out." Cole stared at the code streaming across the screen. Camden found the shell server, found the backup logs, found the draft article titled "The Lie That Built a Marriage." She downloaded it, encrypted it, and saved the metadata. "Now you have proof," she said, "that it was premeditated." Cole clenched his jaw. She wanted to destroy Ilya so completely that even Iris would question her own mother. Back at home, Cole told Ilya everything. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She simply walked into the nursery, picked up Iris and held her tight. "Do we fight this one publicly?" she asked. "No," Cole said. "We don't?" "No," he repeated, softer now. "We finish it." They held a press conference the next day, but not one for cameras, not for press. They invited 3 people, a legal representative, a family court judge, and a representative from the Office of Child Protective Services. Ilya gave them a sealed envelope. Inside, a notarized statement. She voluntarily submitted to a private maternal DNA match test, one that confirmed without any doubt that she was Iris's biological mother. The judge looked confused. "Why give this to us if no one requested it?" Ilya smiled sadly. "Because someone was about to. Have you ever been forced to prove something that was already yours? Something no one should have questioned to begin with? Tell us in the comments." Because too many people stay silent when love is put on trial. The judge stood. "I hope you understand the weight of what you've just submitted." "I do," Ilya said. Cole stepped forward. "And if this ever leaks, if even one corner of this information is used against my wife or child, we will come for every single person who touched it. Publicly, legally, completely." The room went quiet. Then the CPS rep nodded once. "Understood." That evening, Cole received a message from Camden. She had traced the digital fingerprints. They didn't lead to Eleanor. They led to a private media consultant she'd once hired to manage Broderick Foundation reputation audits. He'd built the site, timed the articles, prepared the social post template. Camden sent his address, his payment logs, and the list of other families he'd destroyed with quiet stories. Cole didn't hesitate. He bought the man's contract out from under Eleanor, offering double the rate, and lifetime blacklisting immunity if he turned over the communication trail. The man folded in under 24 hours. He sent everything: emails, voice notes, even a screenshot of Eleanor saying, "Take the mother apart piece by piece. The child will survive." Cole stared at that line for hours. He printed it, framed it, and placed it in a locked box beside Iris's birth certificate. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, when someone tries to rewrite your life, you write the ending yourself. The email came in at 3:14 a.m. Camden had set up alerts tied to any attempt to register a new domain or social handle connected to Ilya or Iris. This one was bold. Ilya exposed, net. Cole opened it on his phone, half asleep, body curled protectively around Ilya in bed. The site wasn't live yet, but the metadata linked to 3 active dummy accounts and one publicist in Los Angeles, who once tried to run a smear campaign on a Supreme Court nominee's daughter. He closed the phone, slid out of bed, sat in the nursery, and watched Iris sleep. She twitched slightly in her dream, smiled, giggled. He whispered into the silence, She has no idea how much you've already protected her, Ilya. He looked at his daughter, and I swear she never will. By morning, he had already frozen the attack. Camden's team flooded the hosting domain with cease and desist orders tied to privacy violation threats. They traced the publicist's trail of funds, found a familiar bank source. Not Eleanor this time. A Broderick board member, one who had once told Cole he owed the family his image. Cole made one call. 20 minutes later, the man's daughter, who ran a luxury clothing startup funded by Broderick seed money, received notification that her investors had backed out. Cole didn't make threats. He just started cutting strings. Quiet, final, irreversible. Elia found him standing at the window later that morning, arms crossed, coffee untouched. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "No." Another attack. Blocked. She stepped beside him, took his hand. "I want to speak." He turned. "To who?" "To everyone." "Elia, I'm done hiding." He didn't argue. Instead, he asked, "How do you want to do it?" "Raw," she said. "Real. No studio, no PR filter, no legal jargon, no camera crew. Just me, you, a chair, a camera." He studied her face. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I was silent while I was dying. I won't be silent now that I'm living." They filmed it 2 days later. No set, no makeup, just Elia, sitting in a soft-lit room with a single camera trained on her. Cole stayed behind it, silent, steady. Elia looked straight ahead and began. "For the longest time, I thought survival meant silence. That if I said nothing, no one could twist my words. That if I stayed still, no one could accuse me of taking up too much space. But then I became a wife, then a mother, and then a target." She shared the story in fragments. No dramatics, no theatrics. She spoke about fainting in her kitchen, about not knowing she was being poisoned, about the moment she realized kindness could be a weapon, and that a smile could come with poison in the cup. She didn't hate me. She hated what I represented, freedom from a story she wrote. I was called unstable, fragile, manipulative, but I was none of those things. I was sick. And I got well. Now I'm awake. She paused once, looked at Cole behind the camera. "I don't want sympathy," she said. "I want silence to stop being the price of peace." They posted the video at midnight. No paid ads, no boost, just a pinned message, "When truth is louder than legacy." By noon the next day, it had 4.8 million views. Comments flooded in. Women, husbands, nurses, lawyers, survivors, daughters. The top comment read, "She didn't speak loudly, but somehow, she shook the world." Back home, Cole printed a still from the video. Elia, mid-sentence, eyes steady. He framed it, hung it in the hallway, across from Mother's hands. This was their story now. One wall for the pain, one for the strength, and both built on truth. That evening, Elia received a call from a withheld number. She didn't answer, but a voicemail followed. Just one sentence, a woman's voice, calm, cold. "You want the truth? Then ask your husband what happened the year before he met you." She played it twice, then walked to Cole, held out the phone, and asked, "What truth?" Cole didn't take the phone when Elia held it out. He just stared at the screen like it might crack in half under the weight of that voice. "You want the truth? Then ask your husband what happened the year before he met you." Elia didn't move, didn't push, didn't accuse. But her silence asked louder than words ever could. "Who was she?" Elia asked. Cole looked down, throat tight. Her name was Simone. He told the story slowly, measured, not because he was hiding, but because he didn't want to make excuses. "I was 27. My father had just died. I was halfway through restructuring Broderick real estate with a team of people twice my age who only respected me because of my last name." Elia sat on the couch, Iris asleep upstairs. The baby monitor hummed softly on the coffee table. Simone worked in legal compliance, Brilliant, polished, dangerous in a quiet way. Exactly the kind of person my mother wanted at my side. Elia listened. Was it serious? No, he said quickly, but we were seen together. The family loved her, and for about 6 months she stayed close, too close. What happened? She tried to trap me. Elia's brow lifted. How? Cole exhaled. She faked a pregnancy. He explained everything. The staged ultrasound photo, the doctor's note from a private clinic in Long Island. The moment he knew it was a lie, when he showed up at that clinic unannounced and they had no record of her. I didn't go public, Cole said. I didn't sue. I didn't shame her. I just told my mother I wouldn't entertain any more setups. And what did Eleanor do? Elia asked. She cut Simone off, quietly, but I never heard from her again. Elia looked down. And you think that message was from her? Elia didn't respond for a while. She stood, paced slowly across the room, barefoot, her arms folded. I'm not mad, she said softly. Cole turned to her, surprised. I've done things I regret, she continued. Made choices I don't talk about. Been with people I shouldn't have trusted. But I never held them back from you. She looked up. I need to know there's nothing else. There isn't. Nothing she could use. Nothing your mother could use. He stepped closer. She knows how to find shadows, Elia, but that one was mine, and I locked the door behind me. Later that night, Elia sat on the nursery floor, watching Iris breathe. She whispered, You'll grow up knowing who we are, not who someone says we were. Then she checked her phone. The number that left the voicemail had vanished, disconnected, but a new message came in. We both know she wasn't the first woman Cole erased. The next day, Camden dug deeper, traced Simone's recent activity, found one financial trail that ran directly through an offshore retainer account under a company called EMC Strategies, a firm long rumored to handle quiet exits for social elites. And one of their past clients? Eleanor Broderick. Cole met with Camden in person. This isn't about Simone anymore, she said. This is about leverage. She's trying to create a pattern, Camden said. Fake pregnancies, women with claims, emotional instability. If she can paint you as a man with a history of covering up, then your defense of Elia looks like guilt, disguised as love. Cole rubbed his face. She wants people to think I've always protected the wrong women. Camden nodded. And if the next one shows up with enough proof, the story sticks. That night, Elia asked him one final question. If she gets another woman to come forward, real or fake, what do we do? Cole didn't hesitate. We bring everything to light, every message, every wire, every woman. And if it breaks us, he looked her in the eye, then we rebuild. But in the open, have you ever had someone weaponize your past against your present? How did you fight back, or are you still healing from it? Share below. You might help someone else speak up. The next morning, Elia opened a padded envelope addressed to Mrs. Easton. Inside, no threats, just a silver chain and a ring. The same design Cole had once shown her from his family's archive. A ring never released publicly. One only given to the woman the Broderick family considered future wife material. A ring that had never been on Elia's finger. She stared at it and realized Simone wasn't the last one they had planned. She was just the only one who walked away quietly. Elia held the ring between two fingers. Delicate, sterling, decorative but cold. She recognized the Broderick crest etched inside the band, a swallow perched atop a crown. Cole once told her it symbolized loyalty through storm. But this ring? It didn't feel like loyalty. It felt like property. Cole saw the box and froze. Where did you get that? He asked. It was mailed to me. No return address. Addressed to Mrs. Easton. Easton, his middle name. Elia watched his face shift. That was the name Eleanor used whenever she created off-record documentation for prearranged partners, he muttered. Clean. No direct Broderick tie. You mean fiancés? He nodded once. Women with potential, as she called it. He walked away. paced the kitchen like something inside him was unraveling. "She never gave you a ring like that," Elia said quietly. "No," he admitted. "She didn't want to legitimize you on paper." "So who was this one meant for?" He stopped pacing and said the name like it still tasted like regret. "Holden Ray." Elia blinked. "That sounds like a bourbon label." "She's real," Cole said. "Daughter of a private equity legend. Eleanor kept her close for a while, groomed her for the spotlight. Did you ever meet her?" He nodded. "Twice. Once at a fundraiser. Once at a family dinner I didn't know was staged." "Did anything happen?" "No," he said firmly. "We barely spoke, but Eleanor floated the story. Said we were courting. The tabloids picked it up." Elia sat down. "I thought we were done with the past." "We are." She slid the ring across the table. "Then, help me finish it." They brought in Camden again. By that evening, she confirmed the package had been mailed from a location just 5 blocks from the Broderick Foundation's former media office. And the sender? A temp assistant recently placed there under a false name. Fingerprint scan matched one person, Holden Ray. Cole stared at the report. "She's trying to restart the narrative," he muttered. "If she can't erase you, she'll overwrite you." Elia didn't flinch. "Then we respond the way your family never did, with receipts." They staged their own counter-narrative. Camden helped gather old footage, a secret recording from a family brunch where Eleanor casually mentioned Holden's name as future material. Email threads showing strategic placements of Holden's name beside Cole's in staged press releases. And finally, one damning clip. Eleanor's voice in a closed-door conversation with a board member. "If Elia collapses again, I'll have Holden ready by the quarter. Investors trust her bloodline." They didn't leak it to the press. They sent it to every major Broderick investor, quietly, strategically, and attached a single message from Cole. "Your loyalty to this name doesn't require loyalty to the person who poisoned it." By Friday, Eleanor's influence in the company dropped. 3 board members resigned. 2 publicly backed Cole. The media didn't get wind, but the internal shift was seismic. That night, Cole came home to find Elia in the garden. She was pruning jasmine, face calm. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Which part?" "Walking away from the legacy." He stepped behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "No, not even a little. I gave up a name," he said softly. "I kept you. That's the trade I'll always make." She turned in his arms, rested her forehead against his. "You know what scares me most?" "What?" "That she's not done. She isn't." "But we are," Elia whispered. "We're done playing defense." At 4:47 a.m., Elia's phone rang again. Unknown number. This time, she answered. A breath. Then a woman's voice. "Iris isn't safe. They're moving faster than you think. Check the garden fountain before noon." Click. Elia ran. And what she found wasn't poison, wasn't surveillance. It was a note, folded tight. One line in red ink. "Your mother died to protect you. How much will you risk to protect Iris?" Elia sat on the garden bench, the note shaking in her hands. She read it again, and again. "Your mother died to protect you. How much will you risk to protect Iris?" The words blurred under her tears, but her mind stayed sharp. This wasn't random. This was personal. Someone knew. Someone had crossed a line, and not the one Eleanor had drawn. This wasn't Broderick War. This was something older. Something Elia had buried before she ever met Cole. By the time he came downstairs, she was already packing a duffel bag. "Elia?" His voice was rough from sleep. She didn't look up. "I need to go somewhere." He stepped into her path. "Talk to me." She hesitated, then handed him the note. His face changed. He read it once, then again more slowly. "What does this mean?" Elia pressed her lips together. "My mother died when I was 12. I was told it was a fire." Cole frowned. "You said it was an accident, that she left a pan on." "That's what I believed. That's what my aunt told me. What the paper said. She zipped the bag shut. But if someone's using her now, it means they know something I don't. They didn't argue. Cole packed a second bag and loaded the car. Camden stayed with Iris, and by noon they were on the road to Flatbush, the neighborhood where Elia's mother, Roswyn Wren, had once lived and died. The old apartment building stood worn and narrow, paint peeling, mailboxes dented, but familiar. Elia walked through the entrance without hesitation, her hand brushing the stair rail. Second floor, left side, unit 204. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, 3 times, a rhythm only one person would recognize. The door opened an inch. Then, fully, a short, grey-haired woman with sharp eyes and no time for lies stood in the doorway. "Elia Wren," she said. "I thought I told you never to come back here." Her name was Minta Dorsey. She wasn't Elia's aunt by blood, but she'd raised her for 3 years after her mother's death. She was strict, paranoid, always told Elia to keep her head down and her answers shorter than the questions. Elia had left when she turned 16, never looked back. Until now. Minta didn't hug her, didn't smile. But she let them in. She glanced at Cole. "You married a Broderick?" "Yes," Elia replied. "You'll regret that." Cole gave a slight nod. "Already cost me more than money." Minta seemed to accept that. No small talk. Elia slid the note across the table. Minta's eyes flickered. "I thought this might happen one day," she muttered. "What does it mean?" Minta didn't speak right away. She lit a cigarette. "In 1996, your mother worked at a private research firm. Quiet place, government adjacent, nothing flashy." Elia blinked. "She was a botanist. That's what she told people. Truth was, she developed counteragents for toxins, early testing, plant-based reversals. Her job was to find what could undo poison." Cole leaned forward. "You're saying she worked on antidotes?" Minta nodded. "And it got her killed." Elia's mouth went dry. "Why?" "Because someone stole one of her formulas, used it for private gain. She found out, tried to blow the whistle. And the fire," Minta exhaled, "wasn't an accident." Elia couldn't breathe. Her hands clenched on the edge of the table. Minta looked her dead in the eye. "You've always thought your strength came from surviving her death, but it didn't. Where did it come from?" Cole asked the next question. "Who sent the note?" Minta stared at him, then slowly said, "Someone who knows the truth, and who wants Elia to uncover it before your enemies do." Elia sat silent in the back seat as they drove back to Brooklyn. She looked out at the city she thought she understood. But her mother's legacy wasn't art, wasn't gardens, wasn't even the warm tea she used to brew with cloves and ginger. It was knowledge, dangerous knowledge, and someone wanted it exposed or destroyed. Cole reached over, laced his fingers with hers. "No matter what's next," he said, "we face it together." She nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. Because if this was about toxins, then Eleanor's harmless detox teas may have been inspired by something far more sinister. Sometimes what we don't know about our past is exactly what someone else is trying to hide. Have you ever learned something about your family that changed how you saw yourself? Share in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it. The next morning, Camden sent a photo to Cole. Security footage from their brownstone's front garden. 2:14 a.m. A woman, hooded, face hidden, kneeling at the edge of the flower bed, planting something. No signature, no message. Just one tag on the back of her jacket, Wren Research Initiative. Camden met them at the gate. The expression on her face said everything. It wasn't an ordinary seed, she told Cole, handing him a sealed evidence pouch. I pulled it the second the cameras pinged. Inside was a glass vial, no label, no instructions. Just 3 dark maroon seeds resting like coiled threats. Elia stared at them. She'd seen drawings like that, not in art books. In her mother's journal, Roswyn Wren once described a hybrid seed capable of growing into a toxin-neutralizing plant that reversed multiple ingested poisons. She called it citrine ember, but citrine never went to production. Elia whispered. The formula was incomplete. Camden's eyes narrowed. Unless someone completed it. Cole's voice was tight. You think Eleanor's trying to weaponize it? Camden shook her head. No. I think someone else is leaving you a breadcrumb. Elia blinked. A warning? Camden corrected. An invitation. Later that night, Elia opened the only untouched box from her mother's old things. Inside, loose sketches, pressed petals, recipes, and in one envelope, taped to the back, was a brittle cassette tape. It had her mother's handwriting. If you're hearing this, I didn't survive. They found a player. Sat side by side on the rug. The tape crackled, then a soft voice filled the air. Elia, I was never meant to stay quiet forever. I worked for something bigger than myself. They wanted the cure buried, but I couldn't. You have to finish what I started. The garden will guide you. Start with jasmine, end with fire. Cole pressed pause. What does that mean? Elia stared ahead, lost in memory. In my mother's garden, the jasmine bush was never decorative. It was her start point. She used it to mask other scents, hide things underground. They went outside. Midnight air cold against their skin. She knelt at the jasmine patch near the back wall, dug through the soil with bare hands. 10 minutes in, her fingers hit something metal. She froze, pulled it up slowly. A sealed steel box. Inside, one faded key, a second cassette, a bundle of sealed letters with no addresses, and a manila envelope marked for the one you trust. Cole took it without speaking, opened the envelope. Inside, documents, blueprints, a coded folder stamped Broderick Holdings, Internal Research Division. Elia's heart stopped. This is... Cole finished for her. Proof your mother's work didn't disappear. It was stolen, commercialized. By Broderick, they spread out the contents, schematics showing lab patents issued under shell companies, all with trails leading back to a private firm, managed by the same trust Cole froze when Elia fell ill. A trust his mother quietly reactivated months ago. This is why Eleanor panicked when Elia got sick, Camden said when they showed her. If anyone traced the toxins, it would expose how they're still using Roswin's work, without credit or ethics. Cole stood slowly. She tried to kill my wife, to cover up that she'd already stolen from her. Elia didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply turned to Cole. Are you ready to end this? He didn't blink. Let's bury the Brodericks properly. As they prepare to take legal action and expose the theft, Cole receives a court summons, filed by Eleanor Broderick, alleging full custody rights over their daughter, Iris. Grounds: mental unfitness of the mother and environmental instability, created by the father's detachment from the Broderick estate. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Eleanor Broderick sat in full control of her expression. Dressed in grey, pearls tight on her throat, hands resting like claws on her lap. She didn't look at Elia. She looked past her, like she always had. Cole sat beside his wife. His hand never left hers. He wore no tie, no family crest, only a quiet stare that said, "Try me." The judge reviewed the file silently, then lifted her gaze. Mrs. Broderick, you're requesting full custody of your granddaughter, on claims that her parents, specifically the mother, are unfit. Eleanor nodded politely. My son has abandoned a legacy. His wife was hospitalized repeatedly under unexplained circumstances. Their living conditions are erratic. I fear for the child. Elia felt her throat burn, but she said nothing. Cole squeezed her hand once. Their lawyer stood. Your Honor, not only are the allegations without merit, but we have documentation suggesting this petition is retaliation for Mr. Broderick's separation from the family trust. The judge raised a brow. Do you have supporting evidence? Elia opened a manila envelope. This came from my late mother. It connects the Broderick estate to stolen biochemical research. My husband froze the trust upon discovering evidence that implicated his own family in weaponizing her work. The room fell silent. Eleanor's lips parted, barely. The judge leaned forward. Are you stating that the Broderick Trust, filed under your family name, is currently funding unauthorized biochemical research. Yes, Cole answered. And worse, Camden added from the gallery. They tried to silence Elia by poisoning her, gradually, with unregulated herbal blends masked as detox remedies. The toxicology reports match substances developed under those same patents. Eleanor finally broke her silence. "You'd take your own daughter from me based on whispers and a few plants." Cole's voice never rose. "She'll grow up with her mother. And without lies." The judge reviewed the toxicology, the hospital records, the sealed journal, entries from Roswin Wren, and the business registry printouts. After nearly 2 hours of deliberation, she returned. "This court finds no cause to remove custody from either parent." Petition denied with prejudice. She turned her gaze to Eleanor. "And I strongly advise you to avoid further civil retaliation. The next filing may not be so kind." Outside, press hovered. But Cole and Elia didn't stop, didn't speak. They got into the car and drove. Past the bridge, past the skyline, back to the brownstone, where Iris slept under a mobile of hand-cut stars. Cole stood at the edge of the crib. He kissed her forehead, then walked into the hallway where Elia waited. "She tried to take everything," he said. Elia looked up. "But she didn't." "No," he whispered. "She failed." 3 weeks later, they filed the full report, an exposé in The Atlantic, a televised segment on stolen domestic research and the quiet war between pharmaceutical innovation and family dynasties. Elia never appeared on screen, but her mother's name did. So did Cole's. When he officially removed Broderick from all legal documentation, he became simply Cole Wren. They renamed the foundation too. It wasn't Elia's. It wasn't his. It was Iris Roswin Trust, dedicated to survivors of covert abuse, family betrayal, and invisible poisons, chemical or emotional. Years passed. The Broderick name faded. Some buildings rebranded, some didn't. But in Dumbo, the brownstone remained. And if you walked past it in spring, you'd see a jasmine patch blooming beside a stone path, and a child with bright eyes tending to the plants with her parents. Cole in. Rolled up sleeves, Elia with dirt under her nails and peace in her hands. No cameras, no servants, just family. If you've ever stood between love and legacy, if you've chosen peace over power, or burned a bridge to protect someone you love, then this channel is for you. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more true-to-heart narratives that speak strength, quiet justice, and the kind of love that doesn't need noise to be powerful.